Hi, I'm Adrian Strittmatter. Welcome to Bricks and More. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sentis, a global creative consultancy specializing in destinations, real estate, and the hospitality sector. Bricks and More is all about exploring how to generate, unlock, and maximize real estate value. Our mission is to challenge outdated and limiting notions of how this is done. In each episode, we talk to top professionals to uncover innovative strategies that drive short, medium, and long-term gains. So if you're passionate about making real estate more valuable for more people, you're in the right place. Welcome to Bricks and More.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'd like to start today's episode with a short quote and a short definition. Here's the quote. Art opens our hearts and minds, creates a dialogue and brings people together. For the definition, art is the most effective tool we have for creating meaningful experiences and elevating the human spirit. We know that people make great places and that art in all its form is not only an amazing catalyst to increase visibility and engagement, but can also be a true value generator. So to help us understand its value and all become art ambassadors, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Calum Hall. Calum is the founder and creative director of Creative Debuts, a platform that connects undiscovered artists and designers with potential supporters, buyers, and renters of artwork. Through hosting dynamic events, offering a workplace artwork subscription service, commissioning bespoke projects, providing no-strings-attached grants and selling art, Calum and his diverse community of creatives are flipping the art world upside down and making our urban landscapes more enjoyable and more inclusive destinations. Hi Calum, pleasure to really sort of welcome you in. It's 2025. It's been a couple of difficult years, both in the real estate but also the art market. How are you sensing the year to come?
I'm excited about it, to be honest. I'm excited about it because I feel more purposeful in the work that I'm doing. I'm feeling like I'm making more authentic and genuine connections with people that do want to champion art and understand the value and the impact of art in spaces. And I think as pressures on society, pressures on people, competition in the workplace, the challenges of recruitment, all these factors, whether it's in the office or whether it's in retail or anything like that, art plays a role in all of it. So I feel invigorated after what has been a pretty roller coaster few years, but again, nothing in this art world and doing, in this entrepreneurial experience is easy, right? So, if Brexit, COVID, cost of living crisis, whatever it is that's been thrown at us for the last few years, I feel that art is an amazing vehicle to bring people together, to have important conversations and to transform spaces.
It's really interesting point that you've just raised in terms of enhancing people's experiences of places. How do you feel that art can really help do and increase that level of experience that people can have of a space, of a place, of a destination?
Well, I think a lot of it is about storytelling. So, for example, the art that you have on your wall says a lot about you, right? So whether that's the art itself or what you're looking at, whether it's the story of the artist that made it. And I think when spaces are looking for unique ways to connect with people, looking for ways to champion local communities or artists from marginalized communities, I think art plays such an amazing role for that. So, for example, if you went into an office, they might have amazing furniture, everywhere's got plants these days, but the art on the walls is the first non-verbal way to show what you stand for, the flag in the ground, what is it you represent? And so whether it's a dusty old fruit bowl painting or a beautiful portrait by a black artist, it evokes different emotions in the viewer. And I think there's a responsibility for all of us, whether you're in the arts, whether you're in real estate, whether you're in whatever, to champion creativity, to champion communities and invigorate spaces while it's happening.
So that's a really interesting point, I think, in terms of the emotion or the experience and what it says about you. Do you think that connection specifically around real estate and real estate developers, do you think there is a sufficient consciousness of how powerful that can be on their behalf?
More so than there was. It's gone from, right, here's a wall, put your art up for free, we're doing you a favor for exposure payment. That's less of that. Don't get me wrong, it still exists, but there's definitely less of that, and I think therefore more of an appreciation of art and creativity. I don't know if that was catapulted a bit further forward during COVID, when everyone was at home reconnecting with creativity, using creativity as a bit of an oasis from the world outside. And therefore when we got back into the workplace, we thought, hang on a minute, like, we need plants around us because it's good for our mental health. We need art around us because it inspires creativity and actually boosts productivity and well-being and all these good things in people that are in the spaces. So I think it's still very early in what the collaborations could look like. For example, if you've got a building being developed, you can work with artists at every level of that development, whether it's the hoardings, it's every hoarding, boring vinyl with the agent's name and number and whatever. You can do so much. And I think when a building is coming into a community, what is the building then giving back to that community as well? And a great way to do that is the art on the walls, the design throughout, events engaging with local people, workshops for the people within the building. Like, art is such a brilliant vehicle for that. And I think with the kind of industry being more competitive, people popping up, businesses looking for ways to differentiate themselves from others, art is an amazing way for that. And I think particularly when you look at, I was reading somewhere today that Stormzy's doing like a collaboration with McDonald's, right? So you can go into McDonald's and buy Stormzy's meal, which seems a little bit counterintuitive when he was just doing something about men's health. But anyway, but brands are understanding the power of partnering with creatives, where obviously Stormzy's huge, but you could have an amazing hotel being developed in collaboration with an artist where the artist's or style is through the building, and then it becomes more of a showpiece. And there's lots of amazing artists that do that. Philippe Pantone, for example, does incredible partnerships with, I just saw he did this swimming pool, and amazing. But I think there's going to be more of it, because I think there needs to be more of it, and then it creates just a bit of individuality within the spaces. And
and in terms of, obviously we're talking a lot about the kind of visual aspect, the visual art, but obviously art is multi-platform, pluriform. Have you seen sounds and more sort of sensorial artists occupying the space within real estate as well?
Yeah, I think, what we're all looking for is experience, right? And I think the challenge that real estate in all forms, whether it's retail, whether it's offices, whether it's your home, it's about creating that experience where you feel something when you're there. And I think there's no better way of doing that than connecting with as many different senses as possible. I think it's quite interesting how little smell is used. Smell is so nostalgic. It transforms you into a place. Everyone gets excited about the perfume adverts on the telly, even though you can't smell what the perfume's like. So then when you're in a space, plants, whatever, smells, sounds, art, visual, music, it's all part of, I think, this whole experience. And I think when you've got people working from home, they're in their zone, they're looking at the art that they like, the plants that they like, and then they're going into an office and they're not experiencing that. And I think that's quite jarring. And then in retail, if you want to buy a pair of trainers, you just buy it online. You don't have to go on the tube. You don't have to go in. You don't need to deal, whatever. You just buy it online. So the reason you therefore go into the retail is to connect with the brand, align with the brand experience, understand more than just the selling of the product. And art, as we've done quite a few times, is an amazing way of doing that. Whether it is, for example, what we do with Hugo Boss, which is commissioning incredible artists for artworks within their stores. Again, amazing storytelling, giving people a chance to connect with the artist, seeing something totally unique that they will never see anywhere else in the world. And then there's also driving footfall. What retail space is obviously challenged with is how do they keep bringing people in, connecting new consumers with the brand. And art is amazing. We were doing takeovers of the 4-story Oxford Street flagship with Adidas. 2,500 people we would get there for an event. 150 creatives, product customization, live art, food and beverage, music, like all this different types of things, which then aligns a brand's community and experience with a creative community and experience. And it works well.
What would you say around more sort of B2B or commercial real estate? Who have you seen within the London and international market as a developer or client of yours who've been really championing that because of what it brings from an experience perspective, but also the knock-on effects to the tenants that they'll have within their buildings? Who would you say are the couple sort of champions of that?
Yeah, so I've been working with Montague Evans, for example, for the last, I think it's 4 or 5 years, and they have two art collections every year. And the current collection that they've got is all from LGBTQ plus community. And they're in the next couple of months, they're having an art collection. It's all about the Southeast Asian Heritage Month. So they understand that by showcasing and supporting art, they are also celebrating their company culture. They want to ensure that no matter who comes in their building feels accepted, welcomed, celebrated by the art on their walls, because it is one of the very few ways you can do that. And I think that has a ripple effect to just everyone's day-to-day life. I think when people are sat in an office or in a space and they feel that the art is speaking to them, it's being curated around what they're into, their company ethos, their company pillars, I think it has a transformational effect. There's lots of other, what we really want to try and focus on is being able to curate art and activate space from a wide range of different partners. So for example, we work with Womble Bond Dickinson, which is a law firm, and we do art up and down the country for them in their offices. So we've got on one side, we've got the corporate legal kind of stuff, and then on the other side, we can do the more younger brands, as it were, whether it's the Adidas, whatever, because there is the challenge is not amazing, talented artists looking for opportunities. The challenge is finding the opportunities and aligning with it.
Which is weird if you think of London as, if not one of the biggest, I think it is the biggest city in Europe. Therefore, one could argue from a real estate perspective, the biggest canvas in Europe. Do you think there's sufficient collaboration between the amazing talent that you have in London, the depth of talent you have in London, and I would argue the depth of the canvas that you have in London?
I would say there's not. I would say you see this by the sort of showpiece London art activations tend to be from, the artists get used quite a lot. So they'll go from one, which is a celebration of their talent, but also probably a bit of a magnifying glass on the fact that maybe people aren't looking hard enough for who is the next talent coming through. London, in my opinion, is without doubt one of the best cities in the world to be an artist. It's also one of the most challenging. It's expensive. People are renting, and the whole rental market is very challenging. Artist studio spaces is difficult. People are living at home. They don't have space to create their art. There's challenges with accessing the knowledge to be an artist, pricing work, framing work, talking about your work, building portfolios, all that kind of stuff. You've obviously got incredible institutions here. You can go and see some of the best artworks in the world for free. These types of things are amazing, and obviously surrounded by cultures and communities from all over the world. But there is still that, it's still not flowing through between the retail and creative worlds, but it's definitely more, and I think, as I was saying earlier, I think that will only become more important as everything else is under the spotlight.
And why would you say then, so in essence, if I understand correctly, and using a very bad football analogy, there's difficult to communicate between the different leagues of sort of the up and coming, let's say.
People are speaking different languages. This is why I think what we're doing with Creative Debuts is so important, because we are that connector between art lovers and artists, and being that bridge to not only take the artist on the journey, but take the client or the partner or the business on that journey too, which is understanding that working with an artist is about celebrating their authentic creative style as well as getting something beautiful for your wall. And I think that kind of journey is really beautiful. Creating something unique for a space, a career-defining moment for an emerging artist. These things are like transformational for the artist and for the space. And I think we're in, obviously, in Shoreditch now. 10 years ago, every wall had a mural on. There was pop-up exhibitions. I was doing shows on Rivington Street every month.
And that's changed?
Yeah. It's definitely changed. Well, it's adverts on the walls mostly.
Okay, yeah,
true. Which is, I get, but it's not really, and obviously why everyone wanted to be in Shoreditch was because of the culture, because it was one of the coolest places in the world. And then everything comes in, and then the culture is not nurtured and looked after, whether it's bars closing down, whether it's independent coffee shops closing down, whether it's murals being replaced with adverts, whether it's the lack of galleries, the cost of rent, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So this is why I think we all have a responsibility that if we want to move into an area because we love it, we want to keep celebrating. We want
nurturing
to
it.
keep nurturing it,
Yeah.
because otherwise it can become sterile and stagnant, and that's not what we want. We want to have places that feel like they're exciting and creative and dynamic and evolving and all this kind of stuff. And creativity can work perfectly alongside real estate and corporate, whatever it is, because as you say, it's about surfaces and it's about walls and it's about opportunities.
Well, I think also if you were to sort of put a kind of analogy between the artist creating a unique piece to a degree, well, not to a degree, that's what the real estate developer, the architect are doing. They're creating a unique building. Okay, some of them look vaguely similar, but they're doing that same thing. So you would argue that normally that understanding of how what they're creating is unique and the artist is creating is unique, that synergy should arguably be simpler than what it seems to be.
Yeah, and that's why I just think some artists don't necessarily help themselves with the ability to reply to emails, for example. So there's definitely sometimes a communication block, but I also think there's right, we've done this building, it looks incredible, it's got a showpiece staircase, it looks brilliant, and there's been CGIs of artwork on the wall and no one's actually then decided to follow up with artwork. Or we've got a blank wall, let's just find something and bang it up, and cheap frames, non-reflective glass, art without a story, but it's something on the walls so you don't think about it. And with art being so subjective, I think a lot of the times people may not want to make that decision of what the art on the wall is. And that's where curators or partners or creative debuts or, all these other amazing platforms out there are meant to be experts in the space and should be able to work together with the developers or whatever to have art just seamlessly flow through it. Whether it's you go into a reception, there's a beautiful artwork on the wall and it's like, okay, well, you could have a label with the artist details and you could scan a QR code on that label, and then all of a sudden you've got a video of the artist talking to you about making the artwork, and all of a sudden you've just got an extra layer of immersion, an extra layer of engagement, storytelling, all these kind of bits, which is amazing, as opposed to a print on the wall that means nothing.
Well, you're pushing the narrative, you're allowing people to engage or not to engage, but if they are engaging, then realizing the depth that comes with it.
Yeah, and just like we all want to be surrounded by beautiful things, and we want to, if we're in London, it's because we love culture, we love community, we love creativity, we love the dynamism of the city, we love all this kind of stuff, and that shouldn't stop when you get into a building. That should it should actually be enhanced because it's a controlled environment that can be incredible. And I think you see it a lot with, I think the plants and art relationship is quite interesting. How every space has plants, right? You're not going to go into a new office and it doesn't have plants, because that's considered, it's an easy decision to make. It's not cheap either, but people can see the benefits of it. And art is an obvious one that goes alongside that.
And typically, not assuming, I mean, I think we're getting to the point that a heightened level of experience within a space will drive engagement, will drive visibility, will drive people's desire to be part of that space. What would you say, or what are the different things that Creative Debut does to be able to take people, and specifically real estate developers or clients like you were mentioning, on that journey? What are the kind of things that you guys can do to really foster and begin and kindle that journey? Yeah,
so what we've done a lot of is, for example, if there's an empty space, whether it's vacant, whether it's a shell and core, whether it's in between tenants, we can occupy that space. We can host exhibitions, we can host community-focused workshops, we can host a whole range of kind of elements that are creative and not necessarily just art on the walls. So we want to make sure that people have the opportunity to make things and do all this kind of stuff. So we can make spaces the talk of the town. We can make them exciting. So when a developer is showing, an agent is showing someone around to check out the space, it's engaging, it's exciting. There's people talking about it. It's already on the map. So we do stuff like that. We do an artwork rental. So that's what we do with the Montague Evans. So the artwork changes every 6 months. We work closely with them. It's a great opportunity for the people in the office to discover new art. We get to showcase more artists. We get more money in artists' pockets. Everyone kind of wins.
I've heard that depending on the level of notoriety of an artist, they're kind of sometimes reticent for the rental program. How are you finding that?
I don't work with artists that would I guess if you're super established, and it's different, right? But for the artists that I work with, they are crying out for opportunities to have their work seen. Yeah. They're crying out for opportunities to have their work presented in a way that they're proud of, whether that's the framing or whether that's in the spaces that they're in. they want people outside of their immediate family or the people living in the house to see their art, right? And they also want to make some money. So I think that I think what's great about what we're trying to do is we want to have access both from artists and art lovers to each other at various different levels, you know? So if you're in an office and the artwork changes every 6 months, you'll get to experience a whole range of different styles. You get to connect with different artists, check out their work, buy their work, whatever it is. And then it changes. You're not so emotionally connected to what's on the wall, but you might miss some pieces when it's gone, and that's quite nice too.
Right, that's good.
But with purchasing, that's a different experience too, and you might have a statement reception artwork that you want to have something that really sums up, you know, it's been made for you, it's perfect, it ticks all the boxes, and then that becomes part of your collection. And this is the other thing, you know, with working with Hugo Boss, for example, is they're building an incredible art collection while also ticking all these other boxes off. So for example, you go to Regent Street and there's 2 artworks there by Brixton-based artist Ollie Fathers that are an amazing celebration of his work. So the brand had their brief, colors, this and this, nothing too complicated, because they wanted the artist to be as authentic in his style
Free as possible.
Yeah, and then what they've got out of it is 2 beautiful artworks that are the only ones in the world. They've got people coming in there to check out Ollie's work because they love his work, and of good value. This is the other thing, like working with artists, it doesn't have to cost the world, you know. All obviously depends on kind of what tier you're in, but for the tiers that we're in, you can have something really impactful, really statement artwork, and it's definitely not breaking the bank. And then for Ollie, he's got paid, he's got 2 artworks on Regent Street, which is prime location.
Prime, yeah. So best gallery space.
Exactly. But so he could say, so if someone was like, right, Ollie, what galleries have your artwork in? He could say da 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 da. But actually, he could go to Hugo Boss Regent Street. You've got people in there with the money to buy it because they're looking to buy a suit or whatever. It's the right demographic for his audience. He's already been paid, so that doesn't happen in the gallery. He's already got his money. And he's aligned with a brand that feels is connected to his demographic of his audience. So it's a win-win-win for everyone. And then the consumers going in there being like, oh, wow, I've never seen this before. This is the perfect harmony between artist and business. And then they're doing it we've done we just had an artwork go to Shanghai, we've done Amsterdam, done Liverpool, and then all of a sudden Hugo Boss have a really exciting art collection by amazing artists from around the world. So that's a great way of doing it. And I think with all, like we were saying, with all the challenges that there are, and there are lots of challenges, whether it's footfall, whether it's spend per head, whatever, these things matter. You know, I think these things matter.
They matter, and I think from what you're saying as well, if we go down to the bare bone basics, they work. They work even on a as we were saying, on a visibility level, on a financial level, because they are going to increase footfall, they're going to increase visibility. You said something at the beginning of the podcast which was really interesting with regards to the ability of art to be able to follow the development cycle of a building from conception all the way to delivery. Specifically when, let's say, a developer is keen to sort of create a new destination somewhere, you mentioned something about that link to community, which normally goes through public consultation. Have you worked or heard of or times where you guys have been involved at the inception when you're reaching out to the community and using art as a medium to be able to engage, but also accelerate the acceptance process of saying this is a development in our neighborhood for us, which is going to bring value?
Absolutely. So we worked with Cast Interiors, who were developing the new Legal and General building in Cardiff. Big, I think 12 floors or something, big building. And I was working with the Cast team as they were proposing for that job, so as they were pitching for that job. And my responsibility within that was to put together a list of amazing Welsh artists that we should be spotlighting in the space. So their other competitors or whatever will be talking about the amazing furniture, the plans, as everyone is talking about that. But Cast won the job, and they said that a big part of that was the art integration within the space, because they're in Cardiff, they were loud and proud about being in Cardiff. So let's shout about Welsh artists. And so I think, and that's from the very beginning, from not winning anything from just proposing. And I do a lot of that because at the end of the day, people want to see the art. They have to kind of understand why it's important. And the artists love it because they're like, oh, wow, I'm going to be in this big building. I'm going to make a few quid and I get to go and see it and talk about it and get some photos and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, from before there's even a brick on the floor, like we want to be involved in the conversations.
And in terms of the community, because if I remember rightly, you guys were involved in, I think it was with Brookfield, when you created the kind of hoarding with, celebrating the work of the people who had been building this building as well. How did that come across to the various audiences as well in terms of generating value?
Yeah, so we worked on the principal place. So there was
Exactly.
so as the hoardings, face of the community. That was in partnership with Acrylicize, and the focus of that project was to spotlight local heroes. Whether it was someone who worked in the bar, someone whatever, because and then paint them on the walls. So I think a lot of it, and this was on hoardings. This was construction hoardings. We had, I think it was like 6 or 7 artists. They would each paint a portrait, and it was, a kind of hall of fame of the locals, of local people. And I think, and that's a really good example of obviously this huge building going up, Amazon's HQ, which we actually do some of the artwork for inside as well. But it's a great way of going into a space and understanding why the area is important. Who is the key people, or just some people that from the community that make Shoreditch special, and everyone loves it. Then everyone wants their portrait done. They might be like, oh, I've just had my portrait painted by Mr. Sens, for example, who's an amazing graffiti artist, and that's it's empowering, and particularly when you're painting the portraits of people from diverse backgrounds, and whether it's older gentlemen, it's kids, it's black women, it's a celebration of the community. And I think that's important. We don't want loads of white faces everywhere. We want to be celebrating for what London is.
Yeah.
And these types of activations they're not difficult to do. This is the thing. It's just about having the means to do it and the desire to do it.
So, and I agree with the not difficult to do. And I agree also with the inclusivity impact that can have. So, bit of a stupid question. Why are more people not doing it then? Because they don't know how?
Yeah, I honestly just think it's, if you're doing a building, you've got 1,000,001 things to worry about. A million things that actually, like, the art is, I think just that experience with working with artists or reaching out to artists and knowing what's good, with it being so subjective, people don't necessarily don't want to get tripped up by someone that's rubbish, or it's hype, or it's this, or it's that. And also I think, I find this a lot. If you ask people what art they like, it's what do you mean? I don't really know anything about art. I'm not an expert in art. When everyone's got a wallpaper on their phone, everyone's got something hanging in the house somewhere, even if it's a family portrait. Okay, so you like portraiture, you like photography, and I think a lot of it is just breaking down those barriers of just working with artists and not feeling like just because you've got a shirt on, you can't speak to an artist that's covered in paint in dungarees. There's a beautiful Venn diagram where both those worlds overlap massively. But I think a lot of it is access to artists. It's the time to kind of to dedicate to, what do we want people to feel when they come into this space? And art plays a massive role in that. So it's not that people don't see the value. Of course they do. There's definitely sometimes a bit too much haggling on price, because I think it's sometimes people will pay, however much for a reception desk or for a sofa. But for some reason, that's then not brought into, what about this amazing art on the wall that's a one of one, the only one in the world, like that. Seeing, how often do we just see the only thing in the world? And that's the special thing about original artwork. And it's, it's a part of the soul of the artist. It's a really magical and spiritual thing that sometimes, you get caught up in it a little bit, you may just look at it as being, that's just paint on a canvas. But it's the accumulation of thousands of hours of tears, of triumphs, of learnings, of mistakes, of all these kind of components for a creative's experience on a piece of art on the wall. And I think we need more of it. I think the world is better with more art.
Well, it's completely human, 100% human. And I think as we forever leap and bound forward on technological advances, those are nice grounding points as well. In terms of, if you were to describe your ideal real estate project, like starting from the beginning of the development process all the way to the delivery, what kind of different touch points would you see, like the best client, like the best thing that could ever happen, like a commission, say, like, okay, we're developing this area in London, creative debuts, we want you to accompany us for the, let's say, 7 or 6 years until PC, until development, and you're right there at the beginning, as you were in the job in Cardiff. How could you sort of map out those like best in class touch points that you say would be the ideal job?
Well, I think with anything like that, community engagement's really important. And I think that can be done through creative workshops, through interacting with creative people, local artists within the area. Maybe it's artists from outside the area collaborating with local artists. So you might have, for example, a slightly more established artist as almost like a mentor for younger artists within the scheme. There's without doubt kind of opportunities for the artist to collaborate throughout all elements of the design, whether it's through light fixings, whether it's through the plasterboard touches, whether it's through the furniture layout, whether it's the flow of the space, whether it's the hoardings, whether it's what vinyl's going to be on the glazing, whether it's, again, the furniture or anything like that. Every element can have a creative input on it. And what I love doing is bringing people together through art. So I think any space for me, the more that can connect the space with the community, whether that's through, something simple. You've got about to launch the space, have amazing art there, and combine the launch of the space with the launch of the art. And then you've got a real interesting mix of people. So you've got people, suit and ties, there for the kind of the launch of the building. Then you've got creatives. You've got that beautiful amalgamation of people in the middle. Yeah, and it's exactly the same, I think, in the retail experience. You've got product launches and campaigns all the time, but the public are exhausted with that. We don't need more product being sold to us all the time. We're spending far too much time on our phones anyway. All our eyes are turning into the shape of iPhones because we're just staring at screens all the time. So we need to bring people together. We need to be looking at things in real life, talking to one another, and having amazing art. And then whether it's the art that changes, whether it's some art changes, for example, if there's as I say, like an amazing reception space, maybe you want to keep that big artwork there. It's on the photos on the website. You want people to come into the space and be like, oh yeah, so that's it from the website. But then if there's other corridors or meeting rooms or spaces or lounge spaces or amenity spaces, have that as a ever evolving conversation, as opposed to art's on the wall, job's done. Well, you could have that conversation, that launch, that engagement, that excitement all the time.
So on that point then, would you say that you guys are collaborating enough with, let's say, even like architects?
Mostly. I mostly collaborate with architects and interior designers. Okay. Mostly, yeah. I think it's because they are obviously trusted experts in the space, right? So they're talking about the look and feel, the textures, the fabrics, all that kind of stuff. And they tend to be trusted with then worrying about the art on the walls. So yeah, they've been really supportive. They've been integral to what I've been doing, and it's been amazing to understand more about their world and understand how, again, this kind of Venn diagram notion is they overlap, and
because you were talking about, like specific pieces where, let's say, developers sometimes will spend a lot of money, let's say, on the reception desk, for lack of a better example. But you could also see how collaborating with the architect and maybe, dare I say, the brand agency, you could create a visual language which is seen throughout the building, through the signage and which is then really unique.
And then it's a talking point. For example, if you were to do hotels, you could have each room as a collaboration with an artist, and each room has got its own style, its own thing, and then it takes on a life of its own. And I think for example, we did this amazing project in Berlin with Brookfield, and it was in Potsdamer Platz, which was where where Brothers Grimm used to live back in the day. So we painted, and it was on a temporary, like, acoustic hoarding, big, 20 meters long, God knows how tall. And this is with Mr. Sens, and we painted a huge portrait of Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty there. So it was like this, and everyone was going around loving it, being like, oh, cool. So this is Maleficent, Brothers Grimm, local area, talking point, transforming what was just a boring hoarding. And then it became part of the street art tours. So then not only is the artwork great for the people there looking at it, because then it becomes part of, like, the cultural identity of the city, and people moving around and seeing it and planning the trips, and then people will come on buses, check it out, go to the cafe, get a coffee. It becomes part of the kind of ecosystem of the area. And that's what, in my opinion, what a good collaboration between a surface, a real estate, and artist can do. It can transform the local area, even if it's just a little bit, but it shows a commitment to creativity, commitment to community, and makes money for the area, brings people there, transforms the space.
So we talked about, I think this is really interesting in terms of the barriers to entry. How would you say, and you're talking about the Venn diagram around collaboration, what are the current initiatives you're working on to show people not to be scared of art, that art brings visibility and overarching value and worth, and that everyone can become an art ambassador? What are the initiatives that you and Creative Debuts are working on to facilitate and open up the floodgates of collaboration?
Well, I think a lot of it is being a voice in the space and trying to understand, for people to understand that it's more than just the art on the wall. I think we're at a moment in time where artists and creatives need the support. Spaces need something unique. Places need to be driving footfall. And I think a lot of it is just people understanding that all these kind of threads can go into the same entanglement type thing, like not saying that art is the solution to all the problems, but it's certainly a net positive in all of these spaces. And so I think what I'm trying to do more of is, and this is through LinkedIn and various other things, is just communicate more that just because art is subjective and can be a bit anxiety driving to have conversations about art because it opens up people to have conversations about things that they don't necessarily know about. A lot of it is just accessibility, both from people that love art and want to have art within the space, and also artists that, are taking their art practice seriously. Because this is the other thing. It's not just, these artists are from marginalized communities, we need to put them on the wall. It needs to be great art. But the challenges at the moment is the art world and the systems for young artists or emerging artists or whatever it is to get through is really difficult. If you're going to be in an art fair, you have to pay $2,500, $2,000 for a booth in an art fair and then a commission on the sales. The artists I work don't have that money. Exactly, and then to be in a gallery, it's a similar situation. You have to be selling art because galleries want to be working with artists that are making money that they can nurture.
They're a shop.
Exactly, and they can and they can manage their careers. So there's this kind of huge pool of really talented artists looking out there for opportunities, trying to do everything that I think can breathe some real fresh life into not only just the art world, but into everyone's working experience, retail experience, commercial experience, workspace experience. So I think a lot of it is just it's just accessibility. With so many things, it's accessibility. And what we're trying to do is I understand that, let's just say Hugo Boss again is working with an artist. Hugo Boss have objectives that they want to complete. They want to have a beautiful artwork. They want to spend X amount of money. They want to work with a local artist, and they want the artwork to be aligned with their brand guidelines, their style. And any artist should understand that to be successful, this is the relationship that you have to have.
It needs to be a win-win.
It's a collaboration. Obviously it'd be amazing if you could just paint whatever you want and everyone would buy it, and that that can happen. Obviously, artists selling artwork all the time, but the opportunities for commissions and partnerships and brand allegiances and all these interesting things are this is something that's in the last 10 years has gone a lot more, and artists understanding that the route is not just through a gallery. They can be the masters of their own destiny. They can be using the social media as tools for their work to get out there. They can be working with partners that they wouldn't conventionally be working with 10 years ago, whether it is real estate, whether it is whatever. And that's so much more exciting. We want all these things to be speaking together and reading off the same hymn sheet.
So in the coming years, do you see there being, and we talked about it at the beginning, 2025, good, not good, diagonal, wobbly thumb, up, down. Do you see the relationship between art, destinations, places, and therefore bricks and mortar and real estate? How do you see that? Are you more positive around the relationship and the growth of that relationship?
I think it's undeniably important, and I think I hope it's going more in that direction. We were talking about people working from home or people going to the shops. People need experience to be leaving the house. They want to be immersed in something. They want to be connected to something. They want to feel something. And I think the way that spaces are going to be able to separate themselves from others is their commitments to the arts, the commitment to what they're doing for their employees, the space that they're in, the kind of impact that they have on the local communities, climate, all these kind of things, which I hope we're going to, as a country, we're going to be focusing more on in wake of what's happening in the US. But I can't really see it being another way, because I think the consumer, whether that's, again, someone looking, if you're going into it, if you're going into a new office space to be interviewed, and you go in there and it's sterile, cold, like hasn't evolved in any time. There's nothing on the walls. It's dust. It's what you're going to be like. Hang on a minute. If they don't care about the space, why would they care about me as an employee? And that's the same with all of it. So I hope it goes more in that direction. I hope that there's more conversations around how art can be integrated more, as opposed to, again, just at the end, which is still obviously better than nothing, and how it can be used for example, if there's a new building being built and they want to show agents around to check it out for leasing, fill it with artists, get live artists there, get art on the walls, get all this kind of stuff. Like we did a collaboration with Spring 4 and they took over, it was at the Museum of London, like a little space, and they were doing a networking party, right? And so instead of just everyone turning up, like drinking, because that's different as well, right? People are looking for different ways to connect that isn't involved around a pint glass. Yeah. We had live art happening. We had a highlight reel kind of collection of amazing artworks. We had this Saki Tomita, who's an incredible painter. She was doing a live painting. We had illustrators doing stuff on the windows in Posca pens. And all of a sudden people are like, wow, like this is different. This is...
It's hyper memorable.
Yeah, well. And it's just, it's memorable. It gives them the opportunity to speak to artists as well. Seeing an artwork being created is amazing. And most people don't get that opportunity. Yeah. Seeing whether it's a mural, whether it's a painting, whether it's a tattoo, whether it's an illustration, whatever, seeing a master at work in anything is amazing. Seeing someone who's amazing at plastering is amazing. Chefs, whatever it is, things can be done that just connect people and make an experience unique.
And would you say there's anything, to close off, anything that you're really excited about in the art world and its potential of these new things or new forms of expression to be applied to the great canvas, which is the City of London or cities around the world?
Yeah, absolutely. You've obviously got the rise of AI in art, which is a bit of a double-edged sword, really. It'll be interesting to see, artists that work in the planning and developing these amazing spaces. That's going to be guys coming after them a little bit. But you've got VR, you've got AR. We just did an amazing mural with GSK in their new building in Tottenham Court Road. And it's in a staircase, and it was all about... they wanted a mural that would be like a nature oasis that paid homage to Camden and to plants and nature that was used for medicinal purposes during the development of the company. So there was this amazing mural, and then you hold your phone up to it and it pinpoints certain plants and the medicinal benefits and tells you about it on your phone. So art doesn't just have to be a flat experience. Now you can have all these incredible moments with technology that just unlock it to a different dimension, make it immersive, educate. So I'm definitely excited by that. But I think it's what we were saying about the ongoing partnership between developers, property, retail, workspace, and art, and that evolving partnership, because I think that's going to become more and more of a talking point. I think you're going to see people on LinkedIn saying, oh, look at this amazing artist that my office has collaborated on, and everyone's going to get jealous and everyone's going to want to do it, and it's going to become a talking point. It's going to become something that people peacock about a bit. Like, oh, look at my office, look at this amazing mural. So I'm excited by that, and I think that, I just come from Deptford and I'm going on the train to London Bridge and I look out and there's cranes and buildings being developed and all this kind of stuff.
New canvases.
Exactly. Any wall, any surface is a canvas. And what I love about the creative community that we represent is that's the mentality. They are bright-eyed, bushy-tailed to take on any challenge. It's not like they need to be, it needs to be in a museum or a gallery. It's like, no, we'll do product design, we'll do hoardings, we'll do live illustration, we'll do whatever, because they want to get out there, test their skills and show the world their talent. So I'm really excited by that. I'm excited by more conversations about art. Obviously great to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And I think that the more that people understand that working with creativity or artists, it shouldn't be daunting. It should be a fun experience. It should be something where
pleasure.
And something where you feel that if you're commissioning an art, you're having like your voice heard too, and you're feeling that's being something that's proud of, and you understand that you're part of this milestone moment for the artist, and that's really what it is. But it's important to not get too dewy-eyed about how important it is for the artist, because of course it is, but it's important for the space. It's important for people in the space looking at it. and all that.
It's mutually beneficial. It's not an act
Exactly.
of charity or
No.
anything like that.
No, I
exactly.
think it does the opposite, really. I think it's
so,
actually
yeah.
like, it's an amazing opportunity to put your flag in the ground and do something unique, do something amazing, have a talking point, show off, build an art collection that in theory could go up in value, show whether it's the people in the space, whether it's your employees, or it's colleagues, clients, what you're about and what matters to you. Because so many beautiful office spaces, co-working spaces, whatever. If you're in a co-working space, that's all about collaboration and community. So the art on your wall is even more important then, because if you're saying that this is all about bringing people together and shared experiences, shared knowledge, working together, like the art is integral for that.
No, completely.
So I think there's going to be more and more. I think there's also going to be, I think with hotels or spaces like that, I think there will be more obvious collaborations between brands and artists. Obviously, whether it's, because there's a lot with music and fashion, there seems to be more of a acceptance or understanding that of collaboration with brands and understanding how to communicate with those people. And that's when we were doing the stuff with Adidas was quite interesting, because previously they hadn't really done anything like, well, we were the first third-party company to do activations in the flagship store, and we did one in Paris and what have you. But they understand that an artist is also, as in a visual artist, is also going to be interested in music, may also be following a football team and buy the football team shirt. They may also, they're also into streetwear, into culture, whatever. It's all these different shoots that come off it. So if you're a brand or a developer or whatever, it's understanding that there's all these different touch points to connect with. And so then we would have our artist community turn up, love it, and they are then aligned with the Adidas community, because they're like, oh, this is great. Adidas is this home for this amazing art exhibition. We like it.
And I think it's a beautiful way as well of that collaboration with people. When you go past the sort of, it's Instagrammable or it's content generation, there's definitely something about remaining relevant. And by creating relevant spaces that engage with people the way they want to be engaged with now. And I think there's a huge, isn't there? There's a kind of generational difference as well.
Yeah, and I think the Instagrammable thing has been a blessing and a curse. So it's amazing for that moment that then resonates with people, that goes further afield, that has this kind of Instagram thing, but then it can distort what's good and what's not good. And I don't think the objective should be how good is it on Instagram. The objective should be, let's make something amazing in the space, and of course then it's going to be good. So I think this is part of the pressures that artists face. They face financial pressures about developing and getting their work out there and not having to have multiple jobs, whatever it is. But there's also the battle with the algorithm, and I think it's going to be really telling, particularly if you're a teenage artist now, what this impact is on people's mental health, the societal implications of social media and all these kind of things, which is challenging. But I think when it's done right, art should seamlessly fit into the space and not be something that, it shouldn't be jarring. It should be harmonious within the space and within what people want the space to be. But I think I think that the future is exciting. I think the more of these conversations and connections between industries that are just aligned, that are totally connected. At the end of the day, if there's walls and there's artists, that's the match made in heaven. That's beans on toast, right? Yep. That's everything you need. So I think that the more of that, and the more that actually painters and decorators are expensive. So you might be able to pay a little bit more money and you might have a one-of-a-kind mural. That's kind of how it can be seen. So yeah, I'm excited, and I think there's definitely brands and businesses leading the way. Derwent, for example, they have amazing art.
Yep.
Projects and commission some incredible art, and I've not worked with them, but I've seen the stuff that they do, and it's brilliant. And whether it's co-working spaces that do great stuff or hotels or whatever, it's all about these kind of like icebreaker moments and experiences. And people get obsessed about the new Louis Vuitton store and the artist partnership and this and that, and it's like, yeah, well, everyone could be doing that. Like, you don't need to be.
I think that's the thing.
You don't need to be working with the biggest artist in the world, but you could actually work with one from around the corner that will change their life forever. They will then have a never-ending connection with that brand and business, where they'll always be champions of that. For example, all the people that I've been supported with, whether it's Nando's or it's Adidas or it's Hugo Boss, whatever. Like, I understand how integral they've been in my growth, in my opportunity to learn in this business world, and for the support of the artists that so then I become an ambassador for those brands indirectly, because they've helped me and helped the community and been supportive of that. And that's what it should be. It's about collaboration. It's about authentic collaboration, and it's about leaving a kind of positive legacy for everyone involved.
So murals, not walls. between people.
Art, not ads.
Art, not ads.
Art,
That's
not
even
ads.
better. Yeah.
We need ads.
Yeah.
You know, I think, don't get me wrong, like these are important. Billboards and stuff are important. But I think the missing conversation is how do we have the objectives of the brand, business, whatever,
exactly.
and the integrity of the artist. Because what you want is that. You want something original and authentic, not just replacing printing a photo with painting a photo.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's whatever.
Well, I think we've clearly established the link between a heightened level of experience, a unique level of experience, people's ability to and desire to engage with spaces that provide that sort of, that canvas for expression. And I think therefore that's a real sort of proof point that engaging with art across the development cycle can really increase the visibility, can increase the relevance, and can increase the value across all stakeholders of a place and a property, really.
Yeah, and I think it's starting what is the challenge and what is the objective. If the objective is to drive footfall, art's perfect. If the objective is to improve the well-being, productivity and creativity of staff, it can do that. If it's about transforming an unloved space into the talk of the town, into a destination, it can do that. If it's about genuine social responsibility and promoting diversity, equality and inclusion, it certainly does that, more so than the sofas do in the building. So depending on whatever the objective is, if it's about improving the value of a building, okay, well, you could have a boring building, you could get a mural artist that's internationally recognized and immediately, look at what's happening with the Banksy murals in Shoreditch. Curtin Road has got one. We did a pop-up space there. It's got the policeman. That's been preserved in the wall. You've got Art Hotel, who have just built that massive new hotel in Old Street, and it's still got the Banksy rat cut-in. That's because they know its value. That's because they know people will be like, oh, that's a Banksy. I want to stay in the hotel that's there. I want to go and see that. So it's not like what I'm saying is all kind of away with the fairies, art, this, that. It's proven all the time.
It's proven all the time.
It's integral to it. And I think when, what we're saying about people working from home, but shopping online, not necessarily needing to go into spaces, the more immersion, the more interactivity, the more creativity, I think it'll highlight who's doing it right and who's doing it really well and who's not. And I hope there's more of it, not just for my sake and for the artists, but for the spaces that we go to. And
everyone.
like, I find that I'm sat in my flat on a laptop where I could be wandering around the streets, being absorbed by everything, being immersed in everything. And I honestly just think we need more of that. I think with social media, the pressures of life, stresses, family, the world, politics, whatever it is, I think the more that we're brought together in spaces to just have conversations and to connect and to understand that actually when it's all said and done, we're all the same. And art is an amazing vehicle for that. So that's the mission that we're on, is to democratize the art world, to disrupt it along the way, and to connect artists with art lovers and transform spaces.
What an eloquent,
All right.
a perfect outro, Calum. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
It's my pleasure, thank you.
It's always absolutely inspiring.
One take wonder as well, right? Maybe.
One take wonder, maybe. Who knows? Awesome, mate. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Bricks and More. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a colleague or friend who would appreciate it. If you're not already, connect with me on LinkedIn, whether to say hello or discuss a destination, real estate, or hospitality project of your own. Finally, please rate the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, share the episode, connect with me on LinkedIn, and rate the podcast. I'm Adrian Strittmatter, and I'll be back soon with the next episode.